It was so small.
All right, guys, so your 2 minutes, I hope you discussed with your shoulder partner. So what role did John Brown play between Bleeding Kansas and the raid at Harper's Ferry? What was John Brown's role? Trinity.
He was a big role and he opened a lot of people's eyes to what it really was.
Yeah, he did. His actions, as outrageous as they were, it brought a lot of attention. And then and the video kind of alluded to it, but I'll kind of help illuminate this a little bit more for you. When he was imprisoned after Harper's Ferry, he wrote speeches and letters, and those things were republished in newspapers and publications, and his ideas on slavery and the atrocity of it were not only distributed around the United States, but also in England. That's why you had Europeans so upset that America ends up hanging an opponent or someone who opposes slavery. I want to go over 2 words that you may not, that I thought maybe you might not be familiar with vocabulary-wise. Martyr. Does anybody know what a martyr is? Because they said John Brown was seen as a martyr, that some in the North saw him as a martyr. What does martyr mean, Elena?
Martyr is like a big signal flare, if I remember. Like it's big and it's showing off everything.
No, that's not the definition I'm looking for on martyr. Kelby, give it.
They give themselves for a cause.
Yes, a martyr gives themselves generally, and they die for a cause, or they give their. That's a cadaver.
Yeah.
But a martyr, you just give yourself over for a cause. Now that can be physically dying for a cause, or putting your name out there, sacrificing yourself or your reputation as for a cause. Secession. Because it talked about that John Brown was a catalyst, and that the Southerners saw him as a reason. You know what? The United States is filled with all these people like John Brown. We need to secede from the Union. What does secession mean? Kamarian? You remember what secession means? It means to withdraw from the Union. The South had reached a point where they said, we don't want to be part of the United States of America anymore. They wanted to become their own country. They wanted to secede from the Union. So secession means to remove yourself, to break that tie, to no longer be part of, the United States of America is what the South wanted. Yes.
Can they, was it technically illegal for them to do that?
Well, we are governed by the consent of the governed, is the power that our government has. So they technically could, but Abraham Lincoln said, no, we can't give up this United States. We won't give up the Union. We won't let the sectionalism tear us apart. So that's where the Civil War happens, because the Union says, no, we're not going to let you leave. We will stay the United States of America. And they dealt with this very dark issue that we're going to continue to study. How was the raid and John Brown's explanation of it received by Southerners? How did the Southerners, we just kind of been talking about that, how the Southerners, Kevin?
The raid and his explanation, the Southerners saw it as a bad thing, because Kelby was mentioning how they killed a bunch of people, but and also the Northerners, they saw it as also a good thing. But at the same time, they had that deep feeling that it was a bad thing, because he was fighting for a good cause. But the Southerners saw it as he was fighting against them, which led them to become a civil war between the North and the South. And the North, they saw it as a good cause, which influenced other people, including Abraham Lincoln, the quote that he did on the video. It influenced him to see the other side of what people cannot see of slavery in the South.
Yeah. Good. Kelby, you want to add to that?
Well, I don't want to keep this debate going, but I get what Kevin's saying. It was a good cause. I think slavery was a horrible thing, but I think there are different ways to combat it. than taking a bunch of men with rifles, going into a city, and then you end up killing 4 people. In all, he killed 10 people. Killed the 5 at the river, the 4 at the city, and the 1 Marine.
Well, I think back to the quote in the video, and I can't recall which person had said it, but it talked about how you had to have the bloodshed that John Brown did in order to get people to really seriously end this institution. It was W.E.B. Du Bois who said in 1909 that it took John Brown, it took this bloody civil war for us to finally end slavery once and for all. And that's really the kind of the question that we're going to be asking ourselves as we study the Civil War and we get to the end and we get to Reconstruction is, would slavery ever have truly ended? Would we ever have been able to completely turn from that practice without the bloodshed of the Civil War? And John Brown would say, you had to have the shedding of blood to end this. It had to get that serious to end this practice. And it's an important question to ask because they had tried through legislation, and that's what adds to that sectional tension is that legislation, the Compromise of 1850 had been passed, the Missouri Compromise, the Kansas-Nebraska Act. You kept seeing legislation trying to be passed to deal with this sectional issue of slavery, but instead of helping it made it even more tense, and people became more dug in on a very important issue. And I'm going to challenge you, Kelby, in your idea that, these 12 men died. Well, think about how many slaves died. Think about how many slaves were beaten. Think about the torture that they experienced. Does that not justify? And I'm just playing devil's advocate because I'm gonna play both sides. It's important for you to think through it.
All right, I agree with his ideas, but I don't agree with his methods.
What method do you think would have been effective?
Like, they already, debated it. They talked through it.
And
they already, did, rebellions through it. Now they have to, take it more seriously.
Well, so, Kevin, do you think that justifies him killing those 4 innocent people?
In his defense, he has tried other methods before he went to...
Okay, but does that justify him killing 4 innocent people?
Well, but you know what, Kelby, John Brown, but see, this is why the issue is so, was so difficult, is because no one wakes up in the morning and thinks, I want to kill people. I mean,
no.
Someone, not a healthy mind, does not wake up thinking, I want to kill people. That's generally not the average person's moral code. But we had at that time, John Brown had become absolutely frustrated with slavery and how, and not to mention, they had already been roughed up by the Missouri border ruffians who had come over and shoved slavery down the throats of the free soilers in Kansas by altering and fraudulently voting in that election.
And if you think about it, there was
violence there.
If you think about it, the military were also trying to kill the 21 men. So basically, it's almost like equal.
Yeah, 12 of John Brown's men died there in the firehouse.
Well, I'm not gonna try to be too biased about this, but the way that it happened is thousands of slaves have been killed, been abused, been hurt. People were getting outraged. Slavery was wanting to spread. They screwed up somebody's election, skewed the results. The president, who was pro-slavery, just didn't notice them. They were trying to say, this isn't what we wanted, and it was going terrible. And they had tried everything. They talked, the Southern government at that time seemed a bit corrupt.
They weren't corrupt. They were just fully convinced of their way of life and their economy, and that's what they want to protect. All right, guys, we have been approaching, obviously, a sensitive topic, something that is important from our history, something that's important for us to understand. What I want you to do for your exit ticket today or your end of class activity is I want you to write down 2 questions that you still have about the Kansas-Nebraska Act. or Bleeding Kansas, or John Brown, or Charles Sumner. I want you to think about the standard we've been covering, and I want you to write down what are 2 questions that you still have about this. I do want to encourage you that as you go through today and you leave here, remember, we're in this classroom, in these 4 walls, we have our social contract that says we are going to be respectful to each other. We're going to honor each other's opinions, and then I want you to leave it here, guys. I pushed y'all to have a debate, but it was just a debate, okay? So let's make sure that when we walk out of here, you walk out still under the understanding of our social contract, respectful of each other. And I want to thank you for taking the risk to have these conversations, because it takes trust to have conversations like this. It takes courage to have conversations like this. And the good news is, the result of the Civil War was an end to slavery, was an emancipation for African Americans. And that has continued, that civil rights movements have continued for now 150 years. So 160 really at this point. So we aren't there. We're in 2020, okay? 2 questions you still have about the Kansas-Nebraska Act, Bleeding Kansas, Charles Sumner, John Brown. Write those down, and I'm gonna come around and take a look at them as you. Good, I like that. That's a good question. I think they thought that it was. So give me something. Give me how you see that how you feel that it wasn't upheld. Good questions. If you have your exit ticket on a piece of paper, I want it because these are really good. If not, don't worry about it. Keep it in your comp book, and let's get them put up, and I will dismiss you when you are quiet and seated.